And joining us now, the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia. It's good to have you on board this morning, Senator.
Senator, first, let's talk about Iran. Obviously, an extraordinary moment for a regime that's been at the epicenter of terrorism since 1979. What do you think should happen next?
Well, Joe, you're right. The regime is in its dying days. The Iranian people have been extraordinarily brave going to the streets. But I agree with your commentator. We don't have a lot of on-the-ground knowledge. And while we can take potentially cyber actions or try to get the Iranian people reconnected, when the president threatens kinetic strikes, who are you going to bomb? And I would remind folks that the last time America intervened in Iran was in 1953 when the CIA overthrew the elected government, and most historians say that was what led to the Ayatollah's rise in the 1970s. So support, but the idea of a kinetic strike leaves me really concerned. Remember, this is a president said he was going to come in and be the peace president. He, in less than a year, has intervened in Syria, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, Venezuela, Nigeria. We've got 20% of our fleet off the coast of Venezuela maintaining a blockade. A carrier that was supposed to be in the Middle East is off the coast of Venezuela maintaining that blockade. Our military is great, but we are getting it stretched pretty thin.
So let's talk about another international hotspot that didn't make your list, but could at some point, at least Europeans feel like it could, and it's Greenland. With the president on Friday, in remarks at the White House, basically said, I'm paraphrasing only slightly, we will have it either the easy way or the hard way. And even though officials behind the scenes keep downplaying the idea there could be a military intervention in Greenland, the White House pointedly not ruling that out, and even talking about it really puts strain on the NATO alliance.
It's insane. This would be the complete destruction of NATO. I don't know if you noticed this morning, Britain and Germany are talking about putting troops in Greenland as part of a NATO exercise. Are Americans going to go in and fight the Danes, the Brits, the Germans? I mean, this is beyond ludicrous, what he's talking about. And at one point, he's even saying, well, we want to do this because Russia might go into Greenland. Well, if he's concerned about Russia, give the Ukrainians more tools to fight back against Russia. We have American military intervention in 6 nations. We have ICE bringing terror to streets across the country. In my state, 75% of the people who've been picked up by the quotas have not committed any crimes. We have a full frontal assault on the independence of the Federal Reserve launched last night. At what point is enough enough? I mean, are we watching? We're talking about the demise of the Iranian regime. What are we going to be able to say about our own nation's democracy, our role in the world, our respect, the fact of the independence of the Fed? All of this up for grabs at this point. When will there be pushback?
So on that, the independence of the Fed, federal prosecutors have opened a criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and the renovation of the Fed's Washington headquarters. The move marks a significant escalation into President Trump's feud with Powell. In a video statement, the Fed chair argued the investigation has nothing to do with renovations. Here's part of what he posted.
Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation.
Now, President Trump said in an interview with NBC News last night that he doesn't know anything about the investigation, but that Powell is, quote, certainly not very good at the Fed. Lawmakers spoke out against the investigation, including, notably, a Republican member of the Banking Committee, Senator Thom Tillis. Tillis wrote, if there were any remaining doubt whether advisors within the Trump administration are actively pushing to end the independence of the Federal Reserve, there should now be none. It is now the independence and credibility of the Department of Justice that are in question. Tillis went on to say that he would oppose the confirmation of any nominee to lead the Fed until the matter was fully resolved. Senator Warner, you're also a member of the Banking Committee. How do you see this playing out, and how does it fit into everything we're talking about?
Well, it fits into the Trump theory of chaos. Throw as much stuff at the wall as you can. I agree with Thom Tillis. I think this is a direct attack on the Fed. Jerome Powell is known as a pretty calm guy. The fact that he launched such a strong response, and we'll see what the markets react to. How much more just kind of over-the-top, non-normal behavior before our whole system starts to break down? We've got ice in streets across America. We've got our country stretched in 6 different nations, our military stretched. We've got potentially blowing up NATO, and now the independence of the Fed. I just hope and pray that more of my Republican partners will find their spine and be willing to speak up. I give Thom Tillis credit. Let's see how many more join and say the independence of the Fed needs to be maintained.
And Senator, the statement from Chairman Powell last night, truly remarkable, that he felt the need to do
Absolutely.
This direct-to-video address the American people.
This is as calm a guy as you can get, and to be straightforward like that, pulling no punches. This is purely a political attack.
And so on that, this is the latest in the president's campaign of retribution, that whether he has ordered or at least people around him have taken upon themselves to carry out on his behalf. Give us your thoughts as to, this is an expansion of that, but also what it does mean actually for the nation's economy, sort of the stability of, so much is based on the Fed being an independent entity. If that suddenly is even the perception of not the case anymore, that could do real damage.
Absolutely. The stability of the dollar, the stability of our economy. We are the rock. And a lot of that is due to the independence of the Fed. And the Fed's job is to set interest rates based on fact, not based on political whims. We'll see what the markets do this morning, but we are putting so much in jeopardy. We're putting our reputation as a reliable partner when we think about attacking a fellow NATO member. We've got literally 20% of our fleet off the coast of Venezuela trying to maintain a blockade, and it will take 2 to 3 years to get the Venezuelan oil production back up. Is our 20% of the fleet going to stay there for the next 2 years? A lot of those ships are deployed from Norfolk and my state. We've got the questions in the Middle East. This seems to be chaos on steroids. None of this is about bringing costs down. None of this is about dealing with the healthcare crisis in our country. And we're starting to see, we saw 4 or 5 Republicans break last week on the Venezuela effort. We saw 17, I believe, break on healthcare. Is there finally going to be a level of bipartisan pushback against this reckless president?
Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, thank you very much for coming on this morning.